order. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the city in which we live. Guide us this evening as we make our decisions. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, this is April the 25th, 2023, regular meeting of the Newnan City Council. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of on April the 11th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. We adopt the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, will you introduce the youth council members we have this evening?
I will. When I call your name, please stand. They're all in the back there. Miles Tabaret, a junior at Heritage. Susan Grayton Pass, junior at Heritage. And Helena Gibson, sophomore at Northgate.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your service on the council. We appreciate it very much. Okay, under all the boards and commissions tonight, we have a couple of appointments that are made. The ones I called that are made will be accepted into the minutes. The other ones that I don't call, if you'll put them on our next agenda. The first appointment is Cultural Arts Commission. This is Mr. Gion.
Yes, finally we have somebody, Jill Whitley.
Second.
Motion is second, Jill Williams.
Whitley.
Jill Whitley for the Cultural Arts Commission. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. And then the next is Mr. Correcco. Did you have someone this evening?
Next agenda, please.
Next agenda, okay. And then Mr. DeBose, I believe, has a urban redevelopment agency.
Yes, Frank Farmer. Second.
Motion and a second, we appoint Frank M. Farmer Jr., isn't he a junior? Is that correct?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
To the Urban Redevelopment Agency. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next, Mr. Gion also had an appointment to the Urban Redevelopment Agency.
Yes, I'd like to nominate John Pullicare.
Second.
All right, motion and a second on Mr. Jones' appointment to the Urban Redevelopment Agency. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Mr. Phillips, do you have anything this
I
evening?
do not, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have two things this evening off agenda. The first is just an announcement that this week is, because of the Georgia Municipal Association, we're celebrating what is called Georgia Cities Week in the city of Newnan and all across the state, cities across the state. And the theme this year is that cities light the way. And we appreciate GMA doing this. It brings attention to cities across the state and the services and the quality of life that they provide to all of their citizens. And we appreciate that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the excellent job that the City of Newnan staff, our public safety folks did last weekend at Tour Coweta on the 15th, I think. And it was a fabulous job. A great event. I hope all of you got to come out to see any portion of that, from the soapbox derby to the race to the crit. It was a great event the whole day, and we appreciate everybody that had a part in putting that on the 15th. Okay, that's all I have this evening. The next item under new business, Mr. Craver, it's time to recognize the 2023 Newnan Citizens Academy graduate.
Thank you, Mayor Brady. And as you
Welcome,
join me down here, we'd like to recognize a number of folks here today who went through the Citizens Academy. But before we recognize their accomplishments, I'd like to thank Amy Haddon and Anthony Erda, the two staff members who supported that program. As I read your name, members, if you would come up and get your certificate of participation from Mayor Brady. Belita. And if you would remain with us so we can have a photo. Deborah. Vicky. Cassie. And Mr. Thomas. Sir, if you would join Mr. Brady here and look towards the communication well, that maybe our friends from the newspaper wanted to join. No, I'm going to move out of the way.
We'll let everybody know they did it a little differently this year. In years past, it took over several weeks. This year, they did a concentrated one day. It had to have been exhausting. but it's very informative at the same time, where they visited all of the departments in the city, including new utilities, and I hope you were well informed by the time the day was over, and that you'll help us fill some of these positions on these commissions. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Moody, you were up with the consideration of acceptance of the HUD Economic Development Initiative Grant Award and the authorization of the mayor to execute all the necessary documents and the assurances on behalf of the city. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back before you again. So yes, as the mayor said, all we are seeking is acceptance and the authorization for the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the city for this Economic Development Initiative grant.
This packet was in your agenda, and I know everyone read every word.
I did, actually.
Understood it completely.
I did, and I'd like to make that motion.
Yes.
Second.
Good. Motion is second, that we accept the Economic Development Initiative grant and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents and the assurances on behalf of the city. You have a motion, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this?
I do have a quick question, and this
Sure.
is a question that I posed on the budget on page 10 of our agenda. The total budget was $5 million, another $400,000.
Yes.
Could you explain where that $400,000 is coming from, please?
Absolutely. So the $400,000 is actually going to be pulled from existing CHIP funds that we already have in place for the Chalk Level area.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Moody. Well done.
And I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work in getting this done. There were several encounters with the senator's team, Senator Warnock's team in particular, to get this done and to manage this process. Actually, several projects went before them, and this is the one that they chose for us, and I'm very grateful for your hard work in getting this done.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, consideration of grant award for professional audio upgrades at Wadsworth. You have this before you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. We accept the contract award as presented, the single bidder. Any discussion or questions of Mr. Craver? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Mr. Craver.
You're welcome.
Mr. Berta is up with a petition of partnership between Plant Noonan, Inc. and the City of Noonan, and although Mr. Sears has advised me that I don't need to recuse myself, I will make the disclosure that I am on the Plant Noonan, Inc. board. Mr. Berta?
Good evening, thank you. Plant Noonan is requesting a partnership with the City of Noonan. We have identified the Alexander property out on Boone Drive, 4th Street and Sunset Lane. We would like to engage with the city to work to create that and turn that property into an arboretum. As explained in the letter, it explains what an arboretum is. We'd like to work towards getting that arboretum certified. There's not many below I-20, definitely not down I-85. To get certified, there are a few criteria that are required, and some of those are, one, there's a plan. There's an organizational group. There's a collection of over 25 species, volunteers, and a public dimension. And so entering into that partnership, Plant Noonan would take up a lot of those criteria in the public dimension with the city in effect. So if you would be so kind and allow us to enter that participation in that partnership, we'd be greatly appreciated.
For those of you, Mr. Craver?
What I'd like to say, Mr. Burden and I have had a number of conversations around this, staff support of this, as well as our landscape architect. The direction to staff to develop an agreement with the council of our city attorney that will kind of clearly line out, label a lot of what Mr. Bird has talked about, as well as some of those obligations going forward is kind of what we're looking for here. So we come back with an agreement defining scope and a path forward, which may include, likely will include in the future, the city procuring a master plan for this process in partnership with Plant Noonan.
Right. This is just the first step. For those of you who weren't on the council, when the city acquired what is called the Alexander property, it was that, I think at that time, 40 acres that the Alexanders owned, the family owned, there on the corner of Boone. And we recognize their willingness to sell it to us and our willingness to put it in into a conservation zoning district, which the city of Newnan actually did not even have in their zoning ordinance at the time. We created the zoning ordinance in order to put the property in it so that it would never be developed. This is the perfect use for that property.
Yeah, there's actually a small pond in the middle of that property, and there's water features that are lacking in some of our public spaces. I think it'd be a very unique opportunity for the city, and it's educational opportunities with Ruth Hill next door. There's sidewalks that approach the property from all sides, very walkable, very accessible. Hopefully, maybe I know the master plan link connects this property if it were so to get that far down the road. So there's lots of opportunities.
So, thoughts from council?
I have one question.
Sure.
Do we have any idea of cost, what we're looking at for this?
No, I don't believe so at this point, sir. I mean, there will be some soft costs engaging, a master plan, but hopefully the team that's hired by the city in conjunction with Plant Noonan would lay that out for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
There are several grant opportunities, Mr. Bird, if you want to speak to
Yes,
those.
and that is part of why we would like to take some of those first steps is to get a partnership. There's a potential $500,000 grant that we could apply for. Plant Noonan could apply for grants. We could fundraise. That's all things that we would like to hash out and work together to approve, where money comes from and even develop what a cost would look like.
The Georgia Forestry Commission is very interested in this taking place.
Yep, there's some great funding coming down through them that could be a part of this project as well.
I have a question. Is our tree commission going to be involved in this in any way?
Yes, ma'am. They've been, through Mike Furbish's office, they're aware of this potential process.
We had a joint
Supportive.
meeting with them,
Yep.
Tree Commission and Parks Commission. We had a joint meeting with them, and at that time, that commission was approved, or had approval of this concept.
Okay.
And there's been some initial looking into that the link would tie into it and be able to smooth flowly, and there wouldn't be any disturbance between the link and.
As Mr. Bird had talked about, the master plan, very high-level
Of course.
document indicates with a, red dotted line that a trail may come through this general area at a point in the future.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve this
All right.
study. Second.
Have a motion and a second. We approve the request for a partnership between Plant Noonan, Inc. and the City of Noonan. Any further questions or discussion?
I think it's a great idea, and thank you for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so
Burton.
much.
Appreciate you being here. Under unfinished business, Mr. Smith is up this evening with a public hearing for the consideration of several subdivision regulation text amendments to Articles 2, 3, 4, and 13, and the zoning ordinance in Section 11 of the subdivision regulations. And you have a handout that so you don't have to flip through the tablet at your desk. Mr. Smith, how are you?
Good evening. Thank you for having me back. As you know, we've been talking over these issues for the past several months, and hopefully you will find an opportunity to review our memo we sent out earlier this month, which just basically reinforced what we had discussed in March, some of the changes we enumerated at that meeting. And nothing really new in what we're presenting to you this evening. We just went back, took some of your comments, made some corrections, and this should just mirror what we've been talking about. But if you have additional questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those for you.
Counsel?
I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
On the cargo container as a principal structure obtained special exception, that special exception, will that be coming to City Council for our approval?
No, sir, it would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission, depending on the underlying zoning at this time.
Okay. The other question I have, I don't see a height restriction. You have a limited size of 200 square feet.
Height restrictions, the non-residential is, I think, 12 feet, I think, on accessory structures, but there are limitations already in place within the zoning ordinance for accessory structures in the commercial and industrial zone.
So the maximum you say would be 12 feet?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Could we find out? My only concern is if you take a cargo container, turn it on its end, you can say it's 200 square feet, but you look at how tall it is.
Yeah.
So,
Don't have I mean, we do have the ability to look it up. I don't have it with me right this moment.
just, if you would just make sure that,
But I know
They
that
can't
there
do
is a
something like that.
cap on accessory structure heights within the zoning ordinance as it currently is. It's either between 12, it's either 12 or 15 feet. It's one of the two.
okay.
Other questions or comments?
I do.
All right.
Under duplex, you're putting it as allowed in RUI.
Yes, ma'am.
Does this have to fall under the appropriateness review for the historic districts?
Not at this time. At some point in time, there are certain zoning districts where it would have to come to a COA that are in that historical resource district overlay district, HRDO. But there are others that aren't in that overlay district at this time. So in those situations, there would be a COA process, but in other RUI zoning districts, there would not be a COA process.
So it does apply to the historic districts to get the
Yes.
review for new construction?
For those that are designated in the overlays, yes.
Okay. And I guess my next area is the historic districts only apply to those that are already on the National Register as opposed to the ones that we locally have
We
identified?
have the local ones, the ones where we have the COAs are that what we call the historic residential design overlay districts. There's a map in the ordinance that designates what those districts are currently. Those are the only ones that we will enact COA processes on for new residential structures.
Okay. Which I guess this will come at the end of the meeting because that's not what we're talking about now, but,
Right, they're not necessarily the same.
right.
Yeah, we designate our own HRDO districts, and they're sometimes mimic, sometimes are not the same as the nationally registered districts.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah,
So,
to piggyback onto that, are you saying that duplexes, it would be allowed in a historic district?
And the RUI zoning district, which includes historic and infill, urban infill, yes.
There are zoning classifications of RUI that may have historic structures and may not. So RUI is not synonymous with historic.
Well, now you're confusing me. I'm concerned about a historic
I'm
district, and you're gonna get a lot of blowback from these historic districts when all of a sudden someone puts a duplex in there.
Well, there's an existing duplex in one of the historic districts on LaGrange Street, red brick, four-sided brick across from Barbara Brown's house.
And
It's
that was prior.
historically significant, and it is a duplex.
And it was prior to the district becoming
Yeah,
on
and
the
this body
register.
can change the historic district overlay. That's a local, I think that's what Mr. Smith was trying to
I-
say, you could change that.
I recommend that we don't allow it in the historic districts or proposed historic districts.
And here's the thing, and I didn't mean to open up a whole can of worms with that. What I was looking for was to make sure that if it is allowed in the historic districts, which we have several, and some of them
Sure.
would be very appropriate to have duplexes in them, that there's a review process to make sure that they are historically compatible with the rest of the neighborhoods, which is what happens under any new construction project right now in
Right.
those districts.
Right.
It has to go through a process that comes through staff. They can't just build anything.
Okay.
So I'm making sure that that caveat is there to protect those neighborhoods as we try to create opportunities for more housing in our community.
I'm fine with that.
And
I'm fine
Mr.
with
Smith,
that.
you said yes, it was.
Yes, it is.
That is correct. Anything that's designated as a historic residential design overlay district currently, and someone wanted to put a duplex in, and it's also zoned RUI, would come before the planning commission
Okay,
to make sure it gets a certificate of appropriateness and its architectural features and details would be in character with the existing neighborhood.
okay.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that, and it goes to the planning commission.
And to answer your question, we did look at the ordinance, and accessory structure height in non-residential districts is 15 feet.
Is what?
15 feet.
Using the technology from it.
So, you see what I'm saying on the height? You know,
Yeah,
the
well,
turn?
not 30, but 15. yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding? This is a public hearing on this issue. I would ask if anyone from the public who has come tonight to take part in this public hearing, this is your opportunity to come forward. Okay, seeing no one come forward, any other questions or comments from the council? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time then and ask for a motion on the text amendments.
So moved.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Well, let me back up a second. And the subdivision regulations. So we had both of those things in this document, text amendment and subdivision regulations. Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
To approve both? All right, and that's your second?
Yes, sir.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Questions? Anyone? I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. We have nothing tonight under visitors, and I don't believe we have any reason, Mr. Sears or Mr. Phillips, to move into an executive session. Is that correct? Anyone in the audience tonight that came before us for any other reason that's off agenda? See no one come forward. I'm going to ask council members, anyone have anything off agenda? I have nothing. That has
No, sir.
nothing to do with money?
I do have one thing I wanted to do, about the 4.6 million that we received. I thank staff, but I neglected to thank Senator Warnock for fighting for us to get this so that we can have this opportunity in our city post-tornado.
All right, we appreciate those comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. We adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion
Just-
carried. Council members, we have some documents to sign. If you'll hang for a second.
Okay.